Hello, in this lesson we're going to learn about the difference between theme and thematic statements and what they are and what they aren't. So just a quick definition, a theme is the central, underlying, and controlling idea or insight of a work of literature. These are universal themes, so they don't apply to just the characters within a single text, but also extend to our lives as a whole. So they're not so specific that they only apply to one reading or one story or one film. And themes tend to express the broader truth about human nature. So if we look at the movie Finding Nemo, a theme that could be in there is a person needs to learn how to trust themselves and others. So you can see that, yes, that applies to the film because it forces characters in that film are forced to trust one another and learn how to do that. But it also applies to us as humans. So just want to review what the main idea of a passage is or a story is. Main ideas are a little bit more specific. They're specific to just one text. They only work for that text. They wouldn't work as a broader universal statement. So for example, Amanda always wanted the same things Mary had. Even though Tim was afraid of heights, he still jumped off the high dive into the pool, and Yara spent hours on her project and got an A. So these are all specific things that tell us what's happening within that text. So there's specific ideas such as names and events, and so these make them main ideas because they are relevant only to that story. So if we were to look at the same list of those three stories and change them to themes, this is what we would get. So if we go back, Amanda always wanted the same things Mary had. Well, jealousy leads to a negative attitude. That makes sense. Amanda sounds like a jealous person, so that would probably fit in there. Even though Tim was afraid of heights, he still jumped off the high dive. Bravery is a good quality to have. Absolutely, jumping off a high dive is about bravery, but that's a general statement about humans, a universal truth about humans that could be true, that applies to the story, but not just the story, it could apply to us. And then the last one is, Yara spent hours on her project and got an A, and this is saying, hard work pays off. So yep, great. That's something that is a universal thing that we could say about humans that would work for the text, but not just the text. Okay. So thematic subjects versus thematic statements. So if you were to go into Google right now and type the word types of themes, what you're going to end up getting is a lot of single word words. So thematic subjects tell us something about the human condition, what it means to be a human being and living in human societies, and it looks at both the good and bad. It's a universal concept, but usually it's only one or two words, and they're broad ideas like love, hate, justice, war, isolation. And so these, just a reminder, are just subjects. They're one-word answers, and life is very complex, and therefore themes are actually very complex. It's impossible to describe a person's life with one word, and so you can't do that with a theme either. So your job is going to be to interpret whatever the thematic subject is in a text. So if a text is about love, what is the text saying about love? And so that way you can have a more clear and concise statement about the theme in that piece of literature. So a thematic statement is what the work says about the subject. It must be conveyed in a sentence. It's going to show the author's belief about how the thematic subject is seen in the lives of regular people. Themes are never explicitly just told to us in a text, and you need to figure out what the theme is based on the characters, what's happening in the story, and the setting of the story. So just a reminder, these are three thematic statements that would work, that they're not just a single word, they're a full statement about a specific thematic subject. So some tips for how to find theme is you can look at the title, that might give you a hint. You could also look at the plot. So what are the main elements, the characters, the setting, how does it end, and what the conflict is. You can look at the protagonist, the main character, what's happening to them, how do they continue to develop over the story. And sometimes you can identify a theme by looking at symbols or repeating phrases. So sometimes when these are used, the author has trying to tell us, hey, this is an important thing. That's why I keep saying it or showing this object over and over. So a symbol is not a thematic statement, but it can help you find it. So remember, the symbol itself is not a thematic subject or statement, but it can help you find it. So once you've considered all of this, you want to have a look about what the author is trying to tell you. And these are just a guideline to kind of help you find that theme. And so how are you going to know if you're right? Well, a theme is based on a reader's interpretation of the story, and each story can have multiple correct themes. So it's okay if you have a different theme than maybe you've seen other people say. As long as you can find at least one piece of evidence from the text to support your theme, then consider it to be credible. If you have to work too hard to find evidence to make it fit, then you're probably not on the right track. So we're going to go look at an example here now. So I'm going to read this out. Frank and Joseph were super excited that the teacher assigned them to the same group. Unfortunately, she also assigned George to their group. George never did any work, so Frank and Joseph knew that they were going to have to pull his weight. Over the next week, the two boys worked extensively to create and rehearse their presentation while George annoyed the girls who sat near him and played on his phone. Frank asked Joseph whether they should tell the teacher about George's failure and contribute to the project, but Joseph advised him against it because he didn't want them to be known as snitches. So George continued to play as the other boys worked. On the last workday, Frank and Joseph debated whether or not they should even write George's name on the project, but they decided to do it just to avoid conflict. Soon it was time to deliver the presentation. Frank and Joseph bounced back and forth in a lively conversational way, delivering facts to the audience and demonstrating their knowledge of the subject. Unfortunately, when it was George's turn to present, he just turned his back to the audience and read from the visual aid in the dry, monotone voice. He mispronounced several words and didn't seem to understand what he was reading. Shortly after the presentation, the boys received a score sheet from their teachers. They had each received a B and the comment, "Frank and Joseph, nice presentation, but I would like to see George get more involved next time. Please try and include him." So looking back at this passage, you want to think about some of these questions here. So what is the thematic subject of the story? So what are some single words? Honesty, hard work, maybe responsibilities. So what is the author trying to tell us about one of these topics? So this person is saying, don't allow yourself to take responsibility for other people's failures. Okay, that's true here. They shouldn't have taken responsibility for other people's failures. And that applies, it's a universal thing that applies to humans. So what evidence do we have that supports this theme? Frank and Joseph have many opportunities to address their problems with George. They could have discussed it with him or their teacher, but they never did. So George gets away with it because the boys were afraid of being called names. So just a recap of what theme is. So while a thematic subject can be expressed as one word, in order for the thematic statement to make its point, it must be expressed in a complete sentence. All the details of the story should point to and support the theme. If they don't, it's likely that you're just expressing your own personal views on the topic. The theme should not focus on the characters, but rather on the message they convey. If you focus on specific aspects of the story, then we're getting more into main idea rather than thematic statement. Theme is an idea that is expressed through the story, but may be applied to your life. You're looking to find commonalities between your life and characters in the story. You and characters may not have the same events, but the general message should be relatable to your life. And complex stories contain several different themes. So hopefully this is a little bit more clear, and it'll allow you to move forward with any exercises or questions.